welcome back to my channel. It's me, Lene. So I just got done listening to 1916 by SABATON, and oh my god. That was a hard one. That was a hard one to listen to. I'm going to be checking out the SABATON history today, though, because I am very intrigued. I want to know more about this story. So I do know it's 2 parts. So we're going to be watching both of them today. So stick in. It's going to be a long one. I hope you're here for it. And yeah, let's check it out. Learn some more about 1916.
Hello everyone, I'm Joachim from SABATON.
And I'm Indy Nidell.
This is, of course, SABATON history.
And this is his history of Motörhead.
But first, the history of Motörhead.
You know, I actually don't really know any Motörhead. I don't know if I've ever... I'm sure I've heard a song by them, but I don't think I really know any Motörhead. I don't even know the history of them. I don't know anything about them. I know the guy, though. I know his face.
Overkill, Bomber, Ace of Spades, Sacrifice, Inferno. You guys already know what I'm talking about, right? The band that never released a bad record in their 40-year career, with a frontman that sold his soul to rock and roll and played it louder than everything else. A gang of gamblers, desperados, and speed freaks who ruled the stage with an iron fist. Of course, I am talking about the one, the only Motörhead. On December 24th, 1945, he was born. Though christened Ian Fraser Kilmister, he is known far and wide to all as the one and only Lemmy. Once he was old enough to be interested in girls, rebellion, and rock and roll, Lemmy chose to quit wasting time in a soul-crushing factory job in the English Midlands and went for a career on the road, playing first in the Rocking Vickers and later in Hawkwind. Yes, this is an abbreviated bio. He had made a name for himself on the British rock scene by the early 70s. I liked Hawkwind back in the day, actually. Well, I still do. Anyhow, after being booted from Hawkwind, Lemmy ultimately decided he had to start his own band if he wanted to play music the way he liked it. His aim was loud, fast, city, raucous, arrogant, paranoid, speed freak rock and roll. It'll be so
That is a hell of a description for music.
loud that if we move in next door to you, your lawn will die.
Your lawn will die.
Initially, Lemmy wanted to call the band Bastard, but after his manager reminded him that there's no chance in hell he would get his songs played on the radio if the band was called Bastard, they changed it to Motörhead, which was the title of the last song Lemmy had written for Hawkwind, and refers to a regular user of amphetamines, not some sort of driver. Lemmy did
Oh my god, I didn't know that. It's a speed freak.
not drive, by the way. The added umlaut was to make it look mean and look unique. Around Christmas 1975, he met Phil Taylor, a very talented drummer, whom Lemmy soon dubbed Filthy Animal, and who replaced the original Lucas Fox. Lemmy was soon introduced to guitarist Fast Eddie Clarke, who was first supposed to be a second guitarist, but became the one and only when Larry Wallace quit. And together they formed the classic Motörhead lineup, the first
Just look at them. That is such a unique style and unique look.
triumvirate of gunslingers,
Yeah.
3 amigos. However, Motörhead was no overnight sensation. 1976 was full of bad shows, bad reviews, bad record deals, but with punk gaining mainstream traction the next year, it also helped Motörhead to finally release their first self-titled album. Their label had actually refused to release their first recordings. They would be released eventually in 1979 as On Parole. There was still a lot of old Hawkwind on the debut album, but songs like Iron Horse, Born to Lose, and the aptly titled White Line Fever would start what the fans would refer to as
I know I've heard a Motörhead song. I mean, how could I not? I know I've heard something, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
classic Motörhead. The game truly began to change when Phil Taylor added double-time kick drums to his kit. The result was the incredibly fast rhythm of 1979's album Overkill, an absolute banger, cementing that The only way to feel the noise is when it's good and loud. So began the era.
Oh yeah, when I'm in my car, the music, it's so loud you can't think, and I love it. It's peaceful to me. Like there's something so spiritual to me about just blaring metal music in my car to where it takes everything away. You can't think, you can't, nothing. All you do is feel, and it's just like sometimes I'll pull up like to some of my friends and they'll just see me in my car just sitting there. Meanwhile, the most just powerful like metal is playing and they're like, how the fuck are you and I'm like, dude, you don't get it. You don't understand.
When everything the Three Amigos touched turned to gold. The follow-up albums Bomber the same year and Ace of Spades a year later became
Ace of Spades. Okay, now I know that one.
instant hits. And for nearly the next 4 decades, no Motörhead show would be complete without their title tracks. Lemmy's rough vocals and rumbling Rickenbacker bass, the thundering double-fisted drums, and the hard-edge riffs became their signature sound. Unrelenting fast rock and roll numbers were, though, accompanied by blues and mid-tempo grooves. Thematically, it was them against the world. The road crew with a love for drugs and loose women, giving the finger to the police, to the church, to the government, to everybody. All this transformed Motörhead from being one of many street-level rock bands to a truly unique and revolutionary lineup. The Three Amigos became stars at home, appearing on British TV and on magazine covers. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre EP they did with Girl School sold more than 200,000 copies in the UK. Their live album No Sleep Till Hammersmith went to #1 in the UK charts. In
No Sleep Till Hammersmith? That's a hell of a name.
1981, they opened for Ozzy Osbourne on their first American tour. But then came the problems. Success led to arrogance. Arrogance to disaffection, and disaffection to a clash of egos. Fights on the tour bus became more frequent over money, over the creative future of the band. A lot of it was felt in their next album, Iron Fist. Although full of gems like the title track, I'm the Doctor, and Grind You Down, the record sounded unfinished and uninspired to many, and despite their success, there were still many critics that saw Motörhead as kind of a joke band, a caricature of the whole biker, punk, rock, hard rock shtick. And when Lemmy announced that he wanted to collaborate with the Plasmatics on a cover of Tammy
Well, look at that lady.
Wynette's Stand By Your Man, Fast Eddie had had enough. Accusing Lemmy of destroying the credibility of the band, he walked out. And Motörhead would never really be the same. As a replacement, Phil Taylor brought in former Thin Lizzy guitarist Brian "Robbo" Robertson. In 1983, the new trio brought out Another Perfect Day, and it instantly divided both fans and critics. For some, it was the most refined, thoughtful, and varied album the band would ever put out. For others, it lacked the very essence of what made Motörhead so unique. Even with
That always happens. Anytime you take anyone out of the band, it's never going to sound the same. Ever, 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 ever. I'm sorry, I do not care. Even if they somewhat sound the same, it's still not the same. It's just not the same.
Back at the Funny Farm having a really similar bass riff to Ace of Spades. Really similar. And although Robbo was a gifted guitarist, he'd never conformed to the Motörhead image. On stage, he wore baggy trousers, colorful hair and shirts, and even straight up refused to play older favorites like Ace of Spades and Overkill.
Oh, you can't do that, dude. You have to play the classics.
Ticket sales for the coming European tour were so bad that they had to pull it. Imagine that.
Aww.
Well, that was it for Lemmy. Robbo had to go.
Yeah, fuck that.
Taylor left in 1984, just after they recorded their guest episode of The Young Ones. That was actually the first time I ever saw Motörhead on TV, that episode. The exit of both Eddie Clarke and Phil Taylor was really the end of classic Motörhead. But there was still the one and only Lemmy, and he was determined to rebuild the band one way or the other. The band was now a 4-man lineup. When Lemmy could not decide between his new guitarists Phil Campbell and Michael Wurzel Burston, he decided to take them both. Oh, they played on that Young Ones episode.
Look at his face right there.
Two really could not be further apart from each other. While Campbell was definitely the better guitar player, Wurzel had more stage presence. With Pete Gill of Saxon on the drums, they tried to reinvent Motörhead's bad magic. And indeed, the first new singles, Killed by Death and Snaggletooth from No Remorse, proved to the fans that the band was far from dead. Snaggletooth was the anthem to the band's iconic logo, the war pig, the bastard, the face Lemmy said you see in the mirror when you're on drugs. Speed don't kill, and I'm the proof, just call me Snaggletooth. And there were a lot of drugs and alcohol in Motörhead's career. I'm not sure how much I can talk about it without being censored by YouTube, so the less said, likely the better. Let's just say, Lemmy always said speed helped him get to places where he could not otherwise. The 1986 album Orgasmatron, however,
Orgasmatron?
did not cause all too many sparks. It was an attempt to find the ultimate formula that would appeal to both hardcore fans and casual listeners. But what came out was a wild mix of different elements, from funk to jazz to punk to metal. It's not bad, but different. Yet the lousy commercial reception would ensure that Motörhead would never stray that far away from their playbook again. Of course, there's always that guy that tells you that all Motörhead
That guy. The way he said that.
songs sound the same, with only slight deviations here and there, and that is, of course, BS. As I said before, the band incorporated many different styles and different tempos on pretty much all albums. Just listen to 1916, or March or Die, and Bad Religion, to Hellraiser, to
Bad Religion, that's another band I haven't really listened to.
I Ain't No Nice Guy. And you tell me,
I know that's talking about a title of a song, I'm just saying.
the songs all sound the same. Of course, the song 1916 from the 1991 album 1916, The Reason We Are Here Today, is an especially powerful ballad about the slaughter that was the Battle of the Somme. Certainly one of the best anti-war songs you'll ever hear. So you know what? Don't be that guy. That album featured the return of Filthy Animal Taylor and seemed to signal a return to the past. Yet these times proved to be ultimately over when Taylor was fired in 1992. The new Motörhead,
Damn, they went through a lot of transitions just from members.
would find its drummer in Mickey D, formerly of Dokken and King Diamond, and a worthy successor he was. Mickey D is a monster on the drums and carried the band to a new level. And once Wurzel left, the Kill Mr. Campbell D lineup would form the second triumvirate all the way to the end. While other rock and metal bands stumbled over themselves in the 90s, many bending their knee to grunge, nu metal, and other variations, Motörhead remained the same. The only major change was the scenery. Lemmy broke with his homeland, and the band focused on conquering the American market. Money had
I wonder what kind of speed they did. There's so many different types.
always been tight within the band. And Lemmy once said that just by writing the lyrics for Ozzy's mega hit, Mama, I'm Coming Home, he had made
He wrote that?
more than in all his time in Motörhead so far. With We Are Motörhead in 1999,
Them album covers are fucking cool looking.
the band demonstrated that they were well aware of what their fans wanted by balancing speed-driven songs with down-tempo numbers, from the thundering See Me Burning to the punk cover of God Save the Queen to the heartfelt One More Fucking Time. Then, with a steady stream of new releases and a constantly updated touring schedule, Motörhead enjoyed a renaissance. 2004's Inferno and its follow-up Kiss of Death in 2006, for example, they are also just bangers. Musically, it seemed like nothing could stop the Lemmy Campbell D lineup at this point. However, Lemmy's declining health became worrisome. In 2000,
Well, how much speed did he do?
he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and hospitalized with exhaustion, and was advised to overhaul his lifestyle of drugs and drinking. But a habit of 60 cigarettes, a bottle of Jack Daniels, and 3 grams of speed a day were
That's fucking insane.
hard to give up, even if Lemmy had wanted to. Instead, he preferred to make sure that he enjoyed life to the fullest, right up until he was killed by death. And indeed, the band kept going strong.
Yeah, that's not a glorious way to go out. That's not cool. That's not oh yeah, that's how rock stars live. No, it's not good. I've been clean and sober over 4.5 years. I know all about the whole party band rock and roll lifestyle, okay? And it's not fucking glorious. There's nothing cool about that shit.
Releasing the acclaimed The World Is Yours in 2011, Aftershock in 2013, and Bad Magic in 2015. But after
Damn, they just never stopped.
40 years of thunder and lightning, the run was nearing its end. Lemmy's once powerful voice became weak and frail, and so did the man as illness took its toll. Shows and tours had to be postponed and shifted around. December 11th, 2015 in Berlin was to be their final show. Fun fact, Marcus Linke, who, as you may know, researches and writes these episodes with me, was at that show. Can we get a picture of him? And now maybe with Lemmy photoshopped in? Cool. Also, fun fact, by late 2015, my series, The Great War, was taking off, and I had the idea that since Lemmy was...
I want to watch that too, because I really like Indy. There's just something, I could just sit there and listen to his voice all day. He's got a really good voice.
Very much interested in that conflict. It would be cool to get him on the show, but like as a surprise. Like I'd say, but the Austrians are making advances on the Italian front, and to cover that, here's Italian front correspondent Lemmy. Over to you, Lemmy. And then it would cut to him presenting the next section of the show. That would have been awesome, but it was not to be. On December 28th, 2015, just 4 days after his 70th birthday, Lemmy Kilmister passed
Damn, 70. Shit, he still lived a hell of a long life, though.
away. Not that long earlier, he had been diagnosed with terminal prostate cancer.
Oh,
And
fuck.
with the one and only Lemmy gone, the story of Motörhead comes to an end. Mickey D and Phil Campbell would go on to do their own projects, which I totally recommend you check out. But after 40 years of sheer badassery, it was just time to say goodbye. Goodbye, Lemmy. Okay, so that was the history of Motörhead. Now, let's hear about your history of Motörhead. I mean, you've obviously been a fan of them for weeks by now.
Yes, actually, coming up to 3 weeks now.
Okay, well, tell us about those 3 weeks and throw in some stuff from years ago just to round it out, okay?
Actually, I saw them the first time, must have been over 20 years ago, around 99, 2000 something.
Damn, Joachim looks different here. He looks kind of tired a year ago.
Time was the first time, I think.
That was
or
when they
maybe
were really
earlier.
kicking it back up, starting to kick it
Yeah,
back up
coming
again.
back up again. And we had a couple of summers, I think it was 2010 or 11 or 9 or something like that, around that era. Oh, you got a coffee delivery.
Oh, it's my coffee girl. So, thank you. Coffee girl, look, you can be on TV. You can look over and say you're on TV. My coffee girl. All right.
That's funny.
As you were saying.
As I was
You were
saying,
saying,
yeah, we every summer and every now and then there's this bands that you're on the road together.
Right.
Not that you're touring together, but both bands released an album or something. So
Right,
you're
sure.
touring at the same time. And I think it was 9 or 10, and that's when we were always ended up on the festivals with Motörhead.
Okay.
Italy.
My cat just like, "Meow." Cayenne. Pepper. They've been being bad.
There's Motörhead, wherever we went, it felt like. And I think that's the first time we did anything else than say hello together and stuff like that. I remember, I don't know if I should say this, but Mickey was actually late to stage once because we were talking about Zlatan Ibrahimovic in the dressing room.
See? That's the kind of stuff that you just don't get in the newspapers.
No, you don't. Yeah, maybe he'll be pissed off for me telling that. It wasn't too bad, but yeah. First time I met Lemmy was funny, and I really learned a lesson. I think I said that, told this story on here sometime before.
Tell it again.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure they've
Yeah, I've definitely got to listen to the Motörhead version.
seen every episode, but maybe they don't remember every episode.
That's true. Well, I think this is Sweden Rock 2003, and I was performing there, but with another band. I was playing the keyboards, and I was in the backstage bar having something to drink. Surprise, surprise. And Lemmy walks in, stands 2 meters away from me at the bar. It was only him and me in there. Strange. But I knew then that he liked Jack Daniels, but he preferred Maker's Mark.
Okay.
So I told the bartender, because
Yeah, Maker's Mark was better to me too.
I was ordering, and get him a double Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
And he came over after, it's like, oh, thanks for the drink. And we started talking a little bit, and I asked him, "Why are you hanging out here with me? You probably got other stuff to do." Yeah. And he told me then that sort of like, well, if you take a drink from somebody, you should at least go and thank them, and if possible, spend the time with that person that you're drinking that drink. And I was, oh, that's a nice thing.
Yeah, that's nice. That's considerate. A lot of people aren't like that, especially these bitches nowadays that go to these bars and manipulate men to buy them drinks and then don't say anything to them. Like fucking whores. You know what you're doing. You know what you're fucking doing, okay?
And I asked him, what if I was an asshole then? I drink whiskey fast. Thanks, brother. And he walked away.
You know, it's funny because I do remember that story, but also if you, like when you were saying, maybe I've told it.
Look at the babies. They're necking. Oh my gosh. They're licking and now they're fighting. Oh. That's that toxic love right there. That fight and loving. They're sister kitties.
Before I'm like, wouldn't be able to remember it. So I'm glad that you reminded us. That's a great moment. So how fast did he drink it?
Oh, he downed it as a joke, of course.
Oh yeah, sure. But you met him a bunch of times after that?
Yep. Usually, especially I remember in Italy, we got the rejection. Oh, great, you guys again. But a lot of good stories about him. I don't know who it was. We've had people in our crew who's worked with Motörhead, and also we met other people. And I remember one thing he was really amazing about is, you know, some artists complain when they're going out of a shuttle, tour bus shuttle or airport shuttle into a hotel, and there's a bunch of fans waiting outside.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember somebody in that shuttle, was other bands in there as well, complaining like, oh great, now we got a signing session to do or some pictures to take. And
I like hearing the Motörhead stuff, but I really just kind of want to get to the 1916 stuff. Like, I want to hear about this battle, damn it.
he sort of said something along the lines, it's nothing to be afraid of. Be afraid of the day when they're not standing there. That's my fear, he said something. So, cool guy. Didn't know him very well, though. So,
what about the other guys? Since this is Motörhead, not just them.
Motörhead, yeah. Obviously met Mickey and Phil a couple of times, mostly Mickey because he is, well, Swedish and around. Usually comes to shows and stuff like that. Known him for quite a few years now, actually. Phil, only a few times, actually. We obviously during the music video shoots, and before that, I'm sorry to say, only a few times at festivals said hi and stuff.
Yeah.
Super nice guy, though.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you were a little kid, did you listen to Motörhead then?
Now is when it gets embarrassing, actually.
Okay.
I did not really like them until I were like 20 years old, you know, or maybe even.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's something about Motörhead, because now I can remember what they sound like. Whenever I heard Ace of Spades, I was like, oh, that's Motörhead, duh. And I kind of remember there's just something about his voice and the band that you can't be a young kid really and enjoy. I mean, you can, don't get me wrong, but to me it seems like an older type taste. Y'all don't come for me.
Late teens, at least.
Okay.
Before that, I never caught on with me.
Well, I didn't really know. I mean, I mentioned in the episode the first time I ever saw them on TV, because, you know, they broke in Europe before, obviously, in the States, was that Young Ones episode. And by then they were a four-piece. They weren't the original trio and stuff. But that was the first time I'd seen them. And I was 16 or 17 when that came out. So, you know, I didn't really know them. So you don't have to feel that bad. You're not alone that I didn't start listening to them to my late teens.
No.
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Eat the Rich? Did you ever see that? The one that they did? Where they wrote Lemmy wrote the song Eat the Rich for the movie.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I ever saw it.
Okay, I don't know what that noise was. I thought it was somebody saying they saw that movie and they really liked it. Actually, the movie itself, I don't think stands the test of time, and it was okay when it came out, but Lemmy is briefly in it. He's in it.
Okay.
And the song Eat the Rich, that was one of the first Motörhead tunes. I have to, come on, baby, eat the rich, bite down on the son of a bitch. That's a very Lemmy lyric.
Yeah. Great songwriter as well. He wrote for other artists. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
Really liked, was it Hellraiser he did it? He did it with Motörhead, I think, but also Ozzy Osbourne did it. He wrote it with Ozzy Osbourne. So.
Well, we mentioned the lyrics for My Mom Coming Home in the episode. And that Lemmy said he made more money from that than from all of the Motörhead stuff beforehand all together.
Can imagine.
But I mean, especially for a band like you guys are worldwide and world famous. And obviously songwriting royalties is a huge source of income comparing just to playing live shows. Yep. You know, some bands, there's members that have a lot of money, some bands that don't have that much money because they're not. How do you guys share the songwriting credits and royalties? Because you and Per write most of the songs, but not all the songs. I mean,
No, everybody is credited as a songwriter.
Okay.
There are different sorts of royalties. This is a sort of nerdy thing, but if you go and look at music royalties, I could be standing here and explaining with a whiteboard for 15 minutes and I still wouldn't cover half of it. So there are songwriting...
Wait. I see a part 4 for 1916. Okay.
Joachim and Per with a whiteboard
Right,
explaining
okay.
music royalties.
I think people want to see that. Write in the comments if you really want to see that.
Briefly, well, there is publishing rights, there is mechanical rights, master owners, there is lyric writer and songwriter. And depending on, well, the song, if you own the recording, as in you are the record label or the recording artist, that is where the biggest share is actually. There is something for if you wrote only the music or only the lyrics, but for that to amount to a lot of money if you did only one song. Yeah. Of course, if you're doing Mama, I'm Coming Home, a global hit, so that's played on the radio everywhere. Because as soon as you get airplay in radio, the rates go up. As soon as it's on theaters or on the radio and such things, that's when the money starts rolling in. Because songwriters' royalty on 1,000 streams on Spotify, it's not gonna, you're not gonna.
Okay, y'all, I'm going to the second part because I really just want to hear about the story, not so much the Motörhead thing. So y'all just give me a second.
Hello everybody,
Okay.
I'm Per from SABATON,
And I'm Indy Nidell.
and you're watching SABATON History Channel on tour.
Okay, on tour. Where are we?
We're in Mora on the Great Swedish Tour Part 2.
Part 2.
But before we talk about that, we're gonna talk about something else.
Take it away, Indy. I'm going to start today with a quotation from Richard van Emden's Boy Soldiers of the Great War. We had another lad killed the last day in the trenches, and the circumstances are particularly sad, for he was only 16 years of age. On Monday night, I was sitting warming myself by the coke fire, and young Crowther was sitting there too, and he looked so young and childlike as he nodded with sleepiness over the fire. Young Crowther was one of the sentries, and I gave the usual order, "Next relief there." I had only just got into the next bay when I heard a call, "Stretcher bearers." I turned and rushed back, and there was the poor lad face down in the trench, reddening the water all round with his blood. He only lived about 10 minutes. The shot entered his back, piercing the lung and bursting the main artery. So ended another young life in the twinkling of an eye.
Motherfucker, man.
In the summer of 1914, the great majority of soldiers going to war did so in the belief of a short, victorious campaign. They would be home before the leaves fell, most certainly before Christmas at any rate. This expectation led to hundreds of thousands of volunteers rushing into the recruitment offices of their respective armies, all wanting to be part of this grand adventure. But not all of them were grown adults. A sizable portion of these volunteers
Oh my god, look at them. I just want to make them some Cheerios and put them in front of SpongeBob, man. Maybe not the middle one. The middle one looks a little bit older, but the one on the right, oh my god.
were young teenagers and underage boys, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, that slipped through the cracks and got sent to the front. Soon the trenches of the Great War were filled with both the young and the old, but an enemy shell did not respect the difference in age. Throughout history, armies always had their boys with them. These might be the drummers, pipers, and buglers, teenagers who maybe suffered from abusive parents or a terrible work environment, often saw the armed forces as a last resort to escape their unhappy lives. And remember, in the 19-teens, working class kids would leave school at the age of 14 or 15 to find employment or apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Only the privileged would remain in schools until they were 18 to 21. But the Great War, the opposite of dull civilian life, attracted both groups equally. In fact, there were many politicians and aristocrats that willingly sent their young sons to the front lines to fulfill a sense of duty. Prominent among them was Belgian King Albert, who said, I want no special treatment for my son. Let him work in the trenches. He has to know how it feels to have blisters on his hands.
I can understand that to a degree. Yes, you want your son to be able to understand what hard work is and for them to not feel like they're too good to get their hands dirty. You know, that is a good thing for fathers to instill in their sons. But this is fucking war. There's bullets, dude. There's fire blower things. Like,
Belgian Crown Prince Leopold was only 13 when he joined the Belgian 12th Line Regiment.
My God.
Of course, this was mostly a publicity stunt.
My niece is 13. Oh.
But Leopold would actually experience the trenches and come under enemy shell fire, so mostly isn't entirely. Back then, the demands of the monarchy, the church, and the army for obedience and discipline were pretty universal, and they were intertwined with society. Each classroom would proudly display paintings of famous military leaders or decisive battles to remind students about their nation's glorious history. The armed forces were seen as bulwarks of security and identity. Maybe nowhere was this more apparent than in Imperial Germany. I mean, it was not by chance that the sailor suit was the most popular dress for young boys at the time. Teachers and professors also played a huge part in stirring up patriotic fervor among the youth, who longed to get their chance for glory worth remembering. But this dream was soon shattered on the battlefields of the Great War. The Battle of Langemarck in November 1914 was quickly dubbed by the German public as the murder of children and the death of innocents. Here, a myth began to take root, that thousands of barely trained teenagers and young students were cut down by the older professionals of the British Expeditionary Force. Now, the official recruitment age in those days was between 18 and 21 in pretty much all of the warring nations. At that age, you were considered a grown adult, ready to make your own decisions, and were a man in his prime to serve in the armed forces. In peacetime, if you wanted to join up, there would be strict questioning, a general test of the senses, followed by an extensive medical examination. But in the turmoil and the chaos of the Great War, there was little time for that. The armies at the front were bleeding out, and they needed ever more men to
just fuck it. Let them join. We need bodies. It doesn't matter.
Fill the gaps. There were many cases where recruiters were even actively told to not be too strict with their demands. If a candidate looked physically fit enough to keep up with the strains of soldiery, then he was most likely waved through. Of course, officially there was a minimum height requirement, as well as necessary weight and chest measurements, but teenagers, well, they can be huge and muscled for their age, especially if they were apprentices on a farm or in the metal industry or something like that. Even the thin, the pasty-faced, the dull-eyed and pigeon-chested, though, were not necessarily excluded by more dubious recruiters. After all, a couple regular meals and a healthy lifestyle of exercise and fresh air would surely turn these youths into proper soldiers.
Yeah, but they're not gonna eat. The food was so shitty, and you were lucky to eat. They're not going to get stronger. They're not going to get fed. They're going to die.
The youngest soldier in the British Army was Sidney Lewis, who enlisted at just 12 years old. Sidney fought at the Somme in the huge offensives there, in the bloody Battle of Delville Wood. Since he had enlisted under a fake name and address, his mother only found out his whereabouts by meeting one of his comrades who was home on leave. She
didn't even know where the fuck he was.
Promptly went to the War Office, showed them her son's real birth certificate, and got him discharged. But why did a 12-year-old boy go to war in the first place? Well, the minimum height requirement for the British Army was only 160 centimeters. That's
5'3", seriously, anyone could fucking join at that.
5'3", and Sidney was tall and heavily built for his age. But since information was often taken at face value, a fake identity was hard to disprove. I mean, there were no computers with the internet to cross-reference a name or double-check if the given age was correct. And even if a boy was turned down by a more cautious recruiter, there was nothing stopping him from trying another recruiting office the next town over. This eagerness might seem strange to us, especially with the benefit of hindsight, but we have to remember that each and every one was suddenly involved with this enormous, all-encompassing war. From kindergarten to university, they were exposed to the constant propaganda. Parents and neighbors constantly talked about the war, and newspapers and magazines were falling all over each other.
Look at my cat. She's just like chilling on me. Yeah, that fucking propaganda shit. We want you. It'll be fine. Come and serve your country. You won't die. You'll be a hero.
With the newest stories and most exclusive photographs from the front. The store sold tons of wooden guns and swords, and children...
Well, I mean, kids playing with little BB guns. That's fine. I've never had a problem with that. But don't fucking glorify it.
...played Germans and French with replica uniforms. France's youth, especially, was gripped by the omnipresence of the war, being under invasion, and with a deep-seated Germanophobia. It was always assumed that one day, some generation would...
Look at this cat. Look at her.
avenge the humiliation of 1871 and return Alsace-Lorraine to the nation. Magazines were not shy of presenting their audience the Petit Bleu, the teenage soldier clad in the blue uniform of the Poilu, going off to fight the Boche, to fight the Hun. A battle near La Bassée in May 1915 was described as follows. 2 French battalions of the line headed the charge, mostly formed of the youngest recruits. The Bavarians held their ground and fought gamely. The youngest soldiers of France rushed the machine guns at no matter what loss, emptied their magazines into the crowded trenches, and then jumped in and fought with the bayonet. In Imperial Russia, although the official draft age was 19, there were reportedly thousands of teenagers dropping out of school to join the regiments at the front. Girls as well would cut off their hair and put on men's clothing to try and join. Medical examinations, if they happened at all, were often just a formality and hastily done. So a teenager with broad shoulders and an acceptable weight and height was good enough to serve in the artillery or carry boxes of ammo for the machine gunners. The Cossacks had a strong tradition of teenagers learning how to ride and fight on horseback. Same went for the Guard regiments, where the rich and important enrolled their sons to serve the Tsar, as well as their own resumes. There were also several frontline units that deployed children as spies, since they were considered less suspicious when they were roaming the countryside between the front lines.
I didn't even think of that. I guess, yeah, you could use them as little spies. I mean, that's what they did in the Iraqi war. They'd have these women carrying babies looking all freaking innocent, and they'd had a freaking vest on, a bomber vest, where they'd get close, trying to make it seem like, oh, I need help with my baby, please. Boom. And I'm like, you fucking evil bitch, dude. Not only did you just hurt yourself, you hurt the baby, and you hurt everyone around you. Now, a lot of the times they had someone else guiding them and keeping an eye on them, saying move, you know, and forcing them to do it, of course, but fucking war is dirty. It's so nasty, man. The shit that they do.
War naturally produced more than enough orphans that were left to their own fate.
I'm not fully anti-war, but I am to a degree. Like, I always think that, look at my cat, dude, look at her mouth. The only thing I think that ever should be fought for is land. Land. That's it. If someone tries to come over here and say, hey, we're going to claim this as ours now, no, we ain't doing that. But oil, money, all that shit, no.
8-year-old Momcilo Gavric was one of them and became most likely the youngest soldier in uniform during the war, wearing that of the Royal Serbian Army. His family was killed by members of the advancing Croatian Home Guard, who burned down their house. Gavric found his way to a Serbian artillery battalion who officially adopted him. He would witness battle, was given his own uniform, and even formally promoted to corporal and eventually to lance sergeant. Such sons of the regiment were not uncommon, especially in places where the front was not as clear-cut as in the West. In the Ottoman Empire, children had always played a great part when it came to generating patriotism among the populace. Teenagers dressed for war stood at the forefront of ceremonies honoring the fallen. Orphans especially were stylized as the lasting symbols of sacrifice, as they became the sons and daughters of martyrs. The vast majority of Ottoman teenagers were also left unschooled during the war. Instead, they were taken up by paramilitary associations like the Strength Association or the Youth League.
Yeah, I guess if you do have something big like that happening in your country and everyone's going off to fight, then who's left to watch the children? Who's left to parent them? So it would make sense that they all kind of got shipped somewhere.
All of the warring nations had such outdoor youth clubs and scout movements, often with semi-military undertones. Here, the children wore their own uniforms, badges, and flags. They marched through the country singing patriotic songs or sat together at campfires, sharing stories of military legends and war heroes, stories which the boy soldiers wanted to experience themselves in the Great War of their time. Yet these would very often not have the happy ending they wished for. And someday, that war would end one way or the other. But most soldiers would carry both internal and external scars forever with them. If the violence and horrors could break grown men, then it would most certainly affect the minds of the young. Indeed, many teenagers who came back after months or even just weeks at the front were unable to return to society. Often they were left in a pathological state of
I bet they fucking were. They were probably traumatized.
trauma and shock. How can anyone expect them to return to?
That's such a delicate ass age. Your brain's still developing. Everything is brand. I mean, even 18 to 21 is you're still developing. But I don't think an 18-year-old should go. You're a fucking child. I think it should be 21. I've always thought that. I think everything should be 21. You gotta be 21 to vote. You gotta be 21 to drink. 21 to smoke. 21 to go into the military. You shouldn't be no fucking 18-year-old. Like, that's so stupid to me. I'm sorry. I'm fucking ranting because this shit pisses me the fuck off.
School or apprenticeship after witnessing all the death and destruction. Tough to say if these were really the unlucky ones, though, as the graveyards of the Great War are certainly full with graves of underage soldiers. Fake identities mean that we can never be sure how many actually fought and died, and many, many parents would never find their teenage son's final resting place. Okay, now
You know, I gotta say, those little boys, though, have more balls than most men do nowadays. Men today are cowards, and they're... You know what I'm talking about. They're just these freaking stupid little soy boys that are like, oh, I don't know how to change a tire on a car. I'm like, oh, God. And I get really frustrated with men nowadays. And those little boys back then had more fucking balls than men nowadays.
we said we are in Mora, which is in Sweden. And tell us a little bit about this tour and why we're here.
The volume kind of changed a little bit there. It's on their end for sure, but it sounds more, a lot more treble.
What we're doing.
This is the second part of the Great Swedish Tour.
Okay.
We did 30 shows, 30 cities in Sweden.
Yeah.
Very few bands do that. Most, they do Stockholm, Gothenburg, maybe a few more, but we did 30.
Yeah.
And after we did 30, we thought it was so fun, so we found another 20 more cities, including here in Mora, which is where we also decided that that's where we're gonna film the SABATON History Channel.
So that's why I came up from Stockholm so that we can do this today. But I saw you guys play at the beginning. I saw you in Eskilstuna last time. Yeah, that was fun. Now, what is so different then, or what is so much fun about touring Sweden as opposed to an international tour?
It's quite a lot of different, we get to play a little bit different set.
Yeah.
We play more songs in Swedish than we normally do from Carolus Rex. And we're touring with a stage set that we're currently sitting in that looks very different from what we normally do. You see, we're not sitting on a tank this time.
We are not sitting on a tank this time. We're not surrounded by barbed wire, which is what we like at home even. We're so used to it. Keep barbed wire by the bed at home. My wife goes crazy, but what the heck, Realism.
And so it's a little bit different. And the whole idea about this tour was born a little bit about the corona. People shouldn't travel during corona, so we travel to them.
Right.
And also to make smaller shows in order to, not have super events,
Yeah.
So that was the plan with the idea why we started. Now we are, of course, a couple of years later. Now we're just doing it because we love it so much.
And you're really playing like everywhere. I mean, 50 Swedish places. That's a lot.
Yeah, we play a lot of them, which very few bands have ever been to before. We started a tour in Övertorneå.
Which I've never been to.
And very few people have been.
Yeah.
And now we are here, after a few days, we're here in Mora, which you've never been.
No, I have been to Mora, actually.
Yeah,
I've never played in Mora. Mora was actually, when I first came to Stockholm in 1996, a guy I knew was going skiing in Lofsdalen, and the first time I'd ever been skiing in my life, it took me through Mora. I couldn't speak any Swedish. I'd only been in Sweden for like 3 weeks. This is the second time, 25 years later, that I've been in Mora. But even, like, I've toured a lot with Swedish bands around Sweden. I think I've played in, like, every town in Sweden. I've never played in Mora.
But you've been skiing in Mora. Did you ski the Vasaloppet?
I did not ski the Vasaloppet.
For anybody who doesn't know what Vasaloppet is, it's the biggest skiing competition in the entire world. And the finish line of that one is here. They go actually 90 kilometers.
Yeah.
And it's in the ancient tracks.
Yeah.
Even though it's opposite direction they go now, but it's in the ancient tracks 500
Want to get to the story.
years ago. This year.
This year? Oh, wow, I didn't realize it was this year was the... Of course this year is the 500th anniversary. Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I'm kind of impatient. I'm going to skip through.
And rally supporters.
And it worked out?
Yeah, I'm going to skip through a bunch of this stuff about... I just want to hear about the story right now. Yeah, they're just talking about this tour.
That's not what he does in, say, England.
I'm sorry, y'all. Y'all don't get mad at me, okay? I just want to know what the song is about, and it looks like all they're going to talk about...
I mean, obviously here, when we're filming...
is this tour that they're on. Yeah, no, we're not going to do all that. I'm sorry. If you want to go watch it, go watch the original video. Me personally, I want to know about the story of it. I want to watch SABATON history. I want to watch 1916 SABATON history. I wanted to know more about just these kids and how in the world this happened. And I like that it showed the real pictures of them. It's just tragic, man. It's hard to fathom these little boys out there in uniforms with guns protecting each other, and the whole topic of the song of them dying together, crying out for their mothers, like, because you know that shit happened, and there's the tragedy behind it and how this shit was allowed, and the whole war in itself, and just the pointlessness of it, and fighting over just a few fucking meters of land and a few fucking miles of land, and it was so fucking pointless. I'm upset. I'm angry. So I might be a little moody, okay? Y'all don't come for me. I clap back in them fucking comments, so don't be coming for me. Damn it, man. Those fucking kids. I'm sorry. That really got me just... Ugh. I just want to, like, cuddle those poor little babies and give them, like, soup and play ball with them, and... different times, man. Hopefully the video for 1916 is out, because you know, with copyright and all that, sometimes the SABATON history will come out before the actual video will come out. I have a full SABATON playlist if you want to go check that out. It's all of my SABATON reactions up until this point, and it's a good amount of them. 86% of the people that watch my videos are not subscribed, so if you could like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. I also have the option for a membership. It's $1.99 a month. You get priority reply to comments, loyalty badges, stuff like that. I also have the option for a super thanks if you feel motivated to do so. A lot of my videos do not get monetized, so anything helps me. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and listening to me. And with that,